Welcome to another episode of the Powerless to Powerful Recovery podcast. My name is Jason. I'm an alcoholic and addict. As always, our mission is to share experience, strength, and hope across multiple media platforms. The story of addiction and the road to recovery. We're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous or any other 12-step based organizations or groups in any way. Here we are, Ron. Another recording. We're going. My co-host Ronnie, aka Ronnie, no matter what's in the building. What's up, Ron?
What's happening, Jay? What's going on, buddy? How's your week going, Jay?
It's a week. It's going. If we would have won that soccer game on Tuesday night, I'd be doing a lot better.
All right.
I'm still salty. I'm a poor sport. I'm trying to fight everyone, dude. I'm a poor sport. That's one thing about me. I'm competitive. But this episode here today, we have Scott Shockley on the show.
Let's
go. The man, the myth, the legend lives on. We got Scotty in the building. His story is inspirational. But, every single guest that we have on the show, man, they're either friends of ours, all-stars in the recovery community, but there's always a story behind it. And so you guys have been knowing each other for a long time. So one of my favorite things to do every time someone comes on the show is just to kind of give all the listeners across the nation, around the world, just the opportunity just to kind of see, how this all came to play. So I'm going to let you do this, Ron.
Sure.
So why don't you tell the story about how you and Scott met? Well, first off, before I go any further, dude, Scott, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome to have you here. I'm glad we could finally, connect and get you out to the studio. Big shout out to Sanctuary Recovery Centers for letting us use their studio and our workplace and the team and everybody and Joe, just the whole crew, man. Big shout out. Thank you. So Ron, why don't you kind of just prep this little thing here and just kind of tell us how you guys met?
So we met at a halfway house in 2009.
Oh, you guys met in the med line?
No, we weren't in the med line, but
you were in the med. Did you have those socks on with a grip on the bottom?
No, half the house. It wasn't rehab.
Oh, it wasn't rehab?
Yeah,
detox.
It was actually the world famous Solutions, the original Solutions.
Oh, the one in Sunny Slope?
No, the one over there on Longview
And
on 16th Street and Indian School.
Okay.
So we both had gotten out of prison separately. We're in separate yards, and we ended up going to Solutions around the same time.
They have both of you, young versions of both of you guys in there at the same damn time?
Yeah,
Wow.
they did, and to tell you the truth,
Who was the head and who was the torpedo? Because I know that's how they were getting down over there.
well, Scott marched to his own drummer. He was pretty institutionalized. He was intimidating, to say the least. He didn't take no BS from anybody. But we got along. We had met mutual. There was mutual people how we became acquaintance and friends. And I just want to say, before I go into more of how we met back then, I never thought in 2009 when I met this man right here that I get all emotional, right? He's my sponsor, and he's somebody who has been, since 2009, our journeys, he's been there for me. We've developed a friendship, and when I got out of prison in 2021, we reconnected, and he's become more than a sponsor to me. So we'll get into more about that, but yeah. So we met in 2009. Scott was doing his thing, and we both got into the phone room game. And
Shout out to all the telemarketers. This story is all about not all about telemarketing, but it plays a big part in it. So I was knowing Scott just really the name when I got in the industry. Well, really because of you, So he was back then. He was just signing checks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't playing around. So
yeah,
go ahead, finish. I keep cutting you off.
And that's okay. And I remember because I'd been to prison, and I knew what Scott was about. And I especially knew what he was about when a guy came back from the store like this, holding his eyes. Scott had punched him in the face, and I remember it was a big thing. They tried to get him thrown out, and the people running the halfway house were like, well, it didn't happen here, so we're not going to kick him out.
Were you caught up on your rent, Scott?
Always.
That's what I have to say.
So yeah, we met, man, and obviously I didn't stay sober, but Scott was one of those guys that he was always around the program, and he was always around people who were involved in the program. And I remember that. And as I was going in and out, Scott never looked at me any different. I remember one time this is gonna bring back a memory. Me and this girl took off from the halfway house and relapsed. And,
Oh, girl with dirty sneakers.
yeah, well, yeah, she had dirty feet too, everything.
Oh, she had Circle K feet.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, brother.
But we were in Tucson.
Favorites.
We were in Tucson, and me and this girl, we were all strung out, and Scott and Rick Romney came and picked me up, and I'll never forget it. He picks me and this girl up, and we're in the back seat, and they're driving back to Phoenix, and they already had it set up for me to go back to Solutions, and they were like, they didn't care that I was going to be dirty. They were just like, just pee in the cup and you'll be fine. Scott had it all worked out, and we pulled up to Crossroads Flower, when it was all women. And he tells the girl, get out of the car, forget you ever met Ron Alessi, and he took off and left this girl standing there,
A
man.
little piece of advice.
Left her at the halfway house. I mean, where else was I supposed to take her?
Yeah, that was the best thing you could do.
Right.
And so you guys have developed this friendship, man. That's started way back when in 2009 and developed into something so much more than that. And when we truly work the steps with our sponsor and all the many men we've all had the privilege of sponsoring, we develop intimacy with each other because it's the genuine sharing of one's true self with another, and through that process, you create lifelong friends. But every journey starts somewhere, Scott. So let's hear a little bit about your journey. What it was like growing up, the family dynamic. You're from, California. Big shout out Lancaster. I mean, what is that?
I never even heard of Lancaster.
Lancaster's about an hour and a half north of LA.
Okay.
I guess it's kind of, by Magic Mountain, off the 14 freeway. It's like the last city in LA County before you start going up north.
So what was life like growing up? 'Cause I know you come from trauma. Just share that with us.
Well, my mom and dad met in high school. My dad was a wrestling star. Mom went to school. They met at high school, and the crazy thing is back in the 70s, if you murdered somebody, instead of putting you in prison for life, the judges tried to give you other things. And what had happened was my aunt was raped by a man, and my dad killed him. And this is why when my mom was pregnant with me, so instead of giving him a prison sentence, they threw him a GED and put him in the military.
Okay, all right. So yeah, back then, that's what it was like. Right?
Yeah,
So
and
what branch of the military was he in?
I know he was in the Army for a little while, and then he did the reserves for a little while, but I don't really remember. I remember spurts of my dad, and he was a heavy drinker. Yeah. I'm never going to call anybody an alcoholic. That's for them to admit. Sure. Because that's some self stuff that you got to go. But when your father's drunk, trying to get in the house, and the neighbors call the cops, and then he tries to fight the police and gets beat up by the cops. And I've seen this happen a couple times with him.
Yeah.
And stitches in the back of the head because he got cracked with a billy club, whatever. It was just what you do. You try to fight the cops, you're going to get beat up. That's,
So seeing that as a child,
yeah,
it's traumatic in itself, right?
you want your dad there, you want your mom. And my mom did the best she could. She had 2 boys, and, she was on welfare, and she was trying to, raise us the best way she knew how, and she was young. She had me when she was 18. She had my brother a year and a half later. I remember this when we lived in that house where I seen my dad get beat up out front. My mom would have me on the front of her and my brother on the back, and she had this basket that she would push. And I was real young, like 4. And she would push this basket to the grocery store through the little desert right there, so she can get groceries to bring back to the house because she had no one to watch the kids. And we moved out of that city, which was Palmdale, which was the city next door to Lancaster, and
Hold on.
Palmdale.
So you like that Afro Man song?
I really don't like that Afro Man
No, you
song.
don't. Palmdale.
But
Come
that's
back to me. Oh, sorry.
that's as a young kid, my mom did the best she could. We lived in the ghetto.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I guess they would consider it Section 8, but it was like a house behind a house that was off an alley, and so I grew up playing in this alley. And the thing about it is it was good, and then my mom met my stepfather, and my stepfather was a child molester.
Wow.
But I mean, she didn't know that. Nobody knew that.
Right.
You know, like I didn't accept him because I always knew who my dad was, and my brother was younger, so he kind of accepted him. So everything I did, I would get hit from him.
You're not my dad.
Yeah. Everything like, black eyes at school, them questioning my mom, what happened, and my mom would ask him, what did he do? He talked back to me, so of course he got slapped, and in the 80s, child abuse wasn't the same, right?
No, definitely not.
And I started getting sexually abused also at an early age. And it would happen, my mom was gone. I remember the first time it happened, my mom was in jail actually for a DUI because they had gotten into a fight. And her and my aunt had decided it was a good idea to go pour sugar in his gas tank of his truck while he was out fishing. And on their way back, they got a DUI. And so she's sitting in jail, he's not there, and me and my brother are asleep in bed. And yeah, we were young too, right? And I was probably like 6, so my brother would have been like 5 or 4. Yeah, but I mean, that's just, and this kind of gets into like the things is like the abuse, I can't do good in school. I would just walk out of school like 2nd and 3rd grade and walk home. Like I didn't want to be in class anymore, so I would just leave.
I'm out.
Yeah, like nobody knew what was going on. Been to the emergency room for concussions because I got thrown through some drywall, things like that. And my mom was young and she was like, she loved the man and he would have an excuse. There was times where he would lock us in the house and wouldn't let us out. And I don't know if he had a drug problem back then. But things were just bad between them for all the time. Like breaking stuff, getting drunk, throwing things. And I remember I was praying to God. I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9. And I was like, God, just let me get cancer and die.
So
Yeah,
I don't for a child to have those thoughts.
I don't want that anymore. I don't want this life anymore. I don't want to, if I get cancer, those cancer kids, they never say nothing bad about them, right?
Yeah.
They don't, you can do whatever you want, but you got cancer, so it's okay. And that's what I thought. And God didn't answer me.
Well, yeah, the reason. I mean, there's a reason for that. We could see that today, when we look back, all of us look back over our lives and we see that, our conception, God, whatever you choose to call your higher power, had a role in every aspect of our story. But the only reason why we see any of that, because at some point we were given the gift of pain and desperation, and we were willing to do something different and align our actions with God's will, and we ultimately get awareness and we get to see how everything played into place. But just in what you've said so far, the amount of trauma, I mean, just one of those events would create those type of thoughts, let alone your dad, and I mean just all that together. I mean that's what it was, right? So you lived in the ghetto, trauma, not good at home, so you turn to the streets, right?
Yeah, I mean, the friends, like, so where I lived at, it was predominantly white when I was young. And then what happened was when the housing market crashed in the 80s, they started moving people from like LA and surrounding cities out there because there was a lot of houses out there that were built, but they couldn't sell. So they started making like government housing or helping them get funding to buy houses. And these people would commute every day, but they would bring their kids that were gangbanging in LA, all that stuff. So you have this melting pot of like all these different gangs in these cities, these little cities that are out in the desert, because the Mojave Desert is where I grew up.
Right. Where's 29 Palms?
That's
the other way.
Yeah,
my brother was stationed there. I don't know. He said it was shitty. It was blowing dirt all the time.
I mean, that's what it was. I mean, I can't say that everything was bad because, like, I grew up dirt bike riding, with friends, and we played in the street until the street lights came on, right?
Yeah.
But there's the other kid that when we were, I remember I was 12, and there was this black kid. His name was Kilo, and he would go steal rocks from his brother because his older brother sold rocks.
So we're not talking about like gemstones.
No, we're talking about crack cocaine.
Okay, all right.
And we were kids, and we would have like bats and sticks with nails banged into them, and we would go to the crack spot with him. Yeah, we'd go to the crack spot with him, and then he would sell the crack at night, and we would jump from street to street, you know, and selling crack at night, and then we would use that money and go to like the arcade or the movies or go to Sizzler or something like that.
Sizzler, dude. I love
Sizzler.
dude.
All you can eat shrimp, like that's the greatest thing in the
You ever go
world.
to Sizzler, Ron?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I love all you can eat shrimp because I love shrimp.
So really, like that was my first exposure to like the money that cocaine can bring. You know what I'm saying? So.
And this is like what, the late '80s we're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, we're talking about
So
'88.
this is like the height of the, you know.
Yeah. Like, and then he, you know, and then he couldn't get any rocks from his brother, so he taught us how to make fake rocks. You know, my mom would work from like 8 in the morning till 5 at night, and then she would go to school afterwards. You know, like I'm taking care of my brother at a young
shout
age.
out mom.
Yeah. She was doing what she had to do, like going to college at night, working during the day. You know, and you know, my friends knew that mom wasn't going to be home, so we could do whatever we want. And we got the pot out, and he's like, "Get me a white candle, get some baking soda, pull the string out, start melting it down. We hit it with the Orajel right on it, mixed it up, pour it in a bag, throw it in the freezer.
I hate you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, we
so
threw
mad. Ronnie's so mad. Huh?
Hey, he'd throw it in the freezer, and then he'd start chopping it up, and he's like, "All right, let's go out tonight." And we're, you know, selling, man, we make it big, and every crackhead was like, "Oh yeah, I'm buying that for $10."
Did they ever come back and get
No, that's why we would jump from street to street, so we didn't have to see him again.
Like, this shit work? You feel
No,
it?
we tell him,
Let's
like, "Hey, there's cops all around here, don't hit that right here, like, you
Yeah,
go
right.
somewhere else." You know, knowing,
Far from you.
you know, and it's that drug addict mentality. Before I ever used drugs, is like we knew we could catch a beating for doing this, but we did it anyways, right? You know, like I know that if I steal from this person that's older and bigger than me, he's probably gonna beat me up.
Yeah, he's not gonna be happy about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You can be sure of that.
And you know,
So when did you actually start using? Because, you know, if you're an alcoholic like myself, you know, anything that I've ever tried to sell, you know, I ultimately will end up doing all of it. So when did you actually start using drugs and alcohol?
see, there was a little rule, and it was like the rule is we don't smoke crack, right? That was just like hands down, dude. In my neighborhood, like that was like the worst of the worst. Like we knew heroin junkies, we knew everything else, and so I didn't actually start doing that. But when I actually started, I remember, I used to think I was a BMX racer, and me and my friends were racing, and I hit this jump and ended up in ICU for 5 days. I skinned the whole side of my face, pulled all the muscles in my neck. I was throwing up blood. I cracked my skull. I ended up in the ICU, and I ended up in the ICU for a week, right? And I get out, and and it's like a week before I start high school, and I got this neck brace on. I mean, I never even looked at the yearbook picture that year because I know that this side was just like red, you know, like from my ear to my right across my nose, everything. And I went to my friend's house, and he was like, "You know what to make you feel better? 40 ounce of Old English."
Oh, they started drinking with a 40 OE?
And and I was like, okay, whatever, like this is my best friend I grew up with, dude. I've known him since the 3rd grade. We did everything together, we rode bikes together. We were always staying at each other's houses, and so I drank for my first time, and I had that feeling of like I fit in. I wasn't scared anymore, because I was a white kid.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was a white kid with a big mouth, living in the wrong neighborhood, and and I didn't know how to fight well, so I got beat up a lot. But when I was drinking OE, everything was better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then the next weekend, he was like, "Oh, I don't have any money to get beer, but we could smoke some weed. I got some weed." Right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, let's try this. And then I'm drinking and smoking weed for a short time. We start ditching school right away. Like, we'd start with one class, get the bum over there at the liquor store. He would always stand right there by the payphones. Old dude with his little walker, and we'd get him to go buy us alcohol, and he'd never get it right because he always needed enough money to get what he wanted first, and then everything that we wanted was afterwards.
Yeah. You know what we call that? We call that me and my friends used to call that the hey dude. Hey dude, will you buy me some beer?
Yeah.
Start hey dude somebody.
But this dude knew we were going to be there every day.
Yeah, he waited for you.
Yeah, because we would sit in the park and we would get drunk all day, you know, and smoke weed, and all our friends were there, and we're running from the bouncers, driving in their little golf carts, whatever, going to, you know, like we were going to raves, we were going to ditch parties, we were doing all this stuff. And
Ron, you ever been to a rave?
I have.
You have.
I have.
I was about to say, I don't know, I bet you haven't been to a rave.
No, upstate New York, man, the old airplane hangars at the Air Force bases
Oh,
up there.
yeah, that'd be great for a rave, huh?
Oh yeah. I mean, but everyone's doing the glow sticks and the designer drugs, and I'm smoking crack in the J John.
Yeah, I was about to say, your rule is we only smoke crack.
Yeah, we only smoke crack.
no, you know, and I started doing everything. Like, I would eat acid or do whatever. I remember, though, you know, my first real love was crystal meth. And but we called it crank back then. You know, is that bathtub shit, dude, that stuff that tastes like burnt tires. And
you do a little bit, you're up for 72 hours.
So, and I'm at my best friend's house, and he was like, we're going to go to this party, but we got to wait till my grandma falls asleep, and then we're going to push her Nova out of the driveway and down the street. No, we pushed it like a quarter mile down the road, because this old Nova started of it, and she'd wake up in a second. So if we push it down the street, we'd go drive it to this party. And I remember I go to this party, and there was this older dude I know from our neighborhood, and I knew his brother too. His brother just went down for murder. He had just lost a baby as a crib death. And so this guy was all whacked out, dude, and he had been doing speed for way too long. And he puts these lines on the table. They were like a foot long each. And you know, I'm talking to him because I know him from when I was younger, and I hadn't seen him for a while. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, that's crank. And I look at my friend, and I was like, what's crank? Is it like coke? And he's like, no, dude, you know, but I've done some with our other friend. Yeah, I've done some with our other friend, and he was like, I'll split one of those with you. And so I do half of it, he does half of it, and it just instantly, dude, I fell in love. Like, can I get some more? Can I get some more? Okay, I'm drinking, I'm doing this, I'm breathing hard, I'm like asking this dude for more. I go upstairs, and I see these dudes smoking speed off tinfoil, and I'm like, what is that? And they were like, chasing the dragon, you want to try it? And I was like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I was up for 48 hours over what I did from just that night, and I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. I like how, like my brain is gone, I don't think about anything, dude, that instantly, like, I would give my left testicle to keep feeling this way.
Yeah. So that's why so they might call you the uniballer?
I mean, whatever, you know, and what comes with that is stealing money from mom's purse, stealing stuff from my brother, stealing stuff from the neighbors, stealing the chain, whatever, you know. But I want to back up, because there was something that, you know, that was majorly gave me a problem with, like, authority and everything. And when I was in the 6th grade, before I started using, I had told my mom's new boyfriend about what my stepdad had done, because I was talking to some friends, and they were sharing stories about being molested as a child. And I told them, and they were like, you need to tell somebody. So I told my mom's boyfriend. My mom comes home, they call the cops. He's living in Florida at the time. So my mom calls the cops and does the whole police report, and then, you know, he comes back like 6 months later to visit his sister, and my mom calls the cop. He tried to call and talk to us and wanted to see us, and my mom had called the cops, let him know where he was at, so they pick him up. And when they pick him up, you know, he's in the county jail, and I have to testify against the person that abused me at 12 years old. So this is kind of
I'm glad you backed it up.
This kind of hinges on, because, you know, they made me say what he did to me and what was done to me, and for the lifetime of trauma that I've suffered because of what he did to me and the amount of time that he got, they sentenced him to 16 months in prison.
Damn. And you had to relive it all.
And I had to relive it all for this guy to get
16 months.
16 months.
And they slap all of us with 5, 6, 8 pieces like it ain't nothing.
So, you know, at this point, like, from 12, before I started, you know, going with the friends and doing this and doing that, and I gave up on, like, anybody protecting me. I gave up because, you know, like, they put me in counseling and a whole bunch of things to try to figure out what was wrong with me. And then when they found out what was wrong with me, they didn't try to get me any counseling or any help after that.
They're like, all right, we got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard Ron's story, and Ron talks about it's the thing that wasn't talked about in your household.
Right.
Right. It was that elephant in the closet, and it was okay for me to act out.
And then we start to believe that narrative.
Yeah, absolutely.
That we don't matter, no one's going to protect me.
And you go through these things as you get older, like, am I gay because of what happened to me?
Yeah, confused.
Or the way I used women, or the way, you know what I'm saying, is like, I had to prove something to myself, like, I'm not this way, or I'm not that way, right? So it's a whole lifestyle now. It's like, you never have a girlfriend, you don't get caught up with them, you sell dope, you don't do it, you know, this and that, and stealing anything you can get your hands on. Like, once I started doing speed, it was over. Like, you know, we were robbing sheds from old people trailer parks, and you know, doing beer runs and anything to get loaded. I would do anything to get loaded. And it's also during that big graffiti time in the early 90s where we all thought we were graffiti artists, and you know.
What was your tag or name, bro? What was your handle?
I don't even remember. It was forever ago, but
I just want to say something real quick, Scott. You know, because I know you on a personal level, right? And I know your story, and hearing you tell it now. I think now, if anyone knows you, you're that comforter and that protector. Like, in the program, the men that you sponsor, you don't coddle any of us, that's for sure. But if you see one of the guys, and I can speak from my personal experience, someone going through something or having a difficult time, you put that arm out there because you don't want anything to happen, especially if that person, if it's no fault of their own, right? And you try to shield them and protect them and teach them about themselves, because that's what you did for me. I just want to share this quick story. I have to share this. So I went through a health scare when I got out of prison, and I was real sick. Jay remembers, and they thought I may have had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I called Scott. He was the second person I called. And I called him and I ran it down to him, the whole story. And I'll never forget what you told me. You didn't hit me with the big book stuff. You didn't hit me with
417, brother.
Yeah, he didn't hit me with all that. What he hit me with was the most real stuff another man has ever told me. And he said, Ron, I don't know what's going to happen, but what I do know is I'm going to walk through it with you.
Ooh.
And that's who you are today, Scott. You comfort and shield and protect, and you're going to walk with people. And I believe that's the lifetime of your experiences and your trauma and people not protecting you when you were a child. And that narrative you believe in, has developed you into the man that you are today.
Sure, absolutely. And so when you were robbing and we're stealing and we're doing anything we could possibly do to get meth, so what ends up coming with that is this little thing called consequences.
Oh, crap.
So so you start experiencing them at a very young age, in the juvenile system. And so, why don't you just kind of talk about some of the consequences that came from that? Because from 15 to 18 years old, you were in the juvenile system and, all sorts of different levels. So why don't you just kind of share just the progression of the consequences that followed from,
The funny thing is I never got busted for like stealing stuff back then. What I got busted was for graffiti. We got busted. Me and my friend got busted for writing on some signs out in front of a school. Me and my friend were walking to these girls' house, and we were just hitting up the signs, and the cops pull up on us, and we got all these markers and stuff in our pockets, and spray cans in our backpack, and I remember, we go, and I was more fearful of what my mom was going to do to me, because I'd been on the streets for a while.
Mom dudes.
Yeah, because, here's the thing is, I didn't like the rules that she had set down for me. So, like, if I wasn't in the house by 10 o'clock at night, I was locked out for the night, because she didn't want, she didn't want me coming in all hours. If I wasn't going to school, if I didn't go to school, this and that and the other thing, and I was just tired of the consequences, so I was just living from friend to friend. Because I'd rather get high and stay on someone's couch or sleep in the, those tubes at the park. You find the right one to get away from the wind, and
like the irrigation tubes, like the
the ones you crawl through, at the park.
Yeah.
And And so we were going to these girls' house, and we were just doing what we do. We're just stupid kids, and we're always high, and we always got something, and we get picked up by the cops, and I gotta go home, and I can't remember the last time I was at home or even talked to my mom. Like, she would put missing persons reports out, dude. I kept my mom up at night, and there's a part of my step one that her things that she's told me have come into play, about the consequences or the unmanageability in my life. And I'll just share this. I remember when I was in prison and I was on a 4-yard in 2004, and my mom's crying on the phone, and she goes, I can sleep at night. She goes, when you're on the streets, I don't know if I'm gonna get that knock on the door if you're dead, right? And that's and we talk about
all of our moms are.
when we talk about the unmanageability in our life, right? And that's the consequences as a direct result of me getting loaded. Like, I can admit, and it's easy to say, like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, right? But to admit that about these certain consequences, like, everybody says, oh, I stole money or something. No, I had to hear my mom cry on the phone in prison. That's my consequence I had to hear, because I was a dirtbag who couldn't stay sober.
Real talk.
Yeah, that's the truth. And you know what? And I got busted doing this, and I go to court, and I get sentenced to, they're like, oh, do this many months in Camp Joseph Scott. I was 15 years old, and there was 2 white boys in there, and I was always punching the other one because he was always crying. Like, I'm in Southern California, so we're outnumbered.
Yeah.
And even though I grew up with blacks and Mexicans, like, I always knew I was white, so I never got in their gangs. I tried to hang around with them and act like a gangbanger, but I was not a gangbanger, right? But all my friends are gang members. We're all holding guns. If my friends were jumping somebody, I was jumping them with them. It was just how it went. Like, you hang out with people; those are the people that you love. And even when I was doing my prison time, or even when I'm in the county jail, is you build this bond with people that are around you, and you'll do anything, and you want to do the same things they're doing, because I need that. I have to fit in.
Acceptance.
Like me.
Yeah.
Like me.
This dude told me he loved me, and now go hit this dude over the head, right?
Come here, little brother.
Yeah. I'm doing that because I need that acceptance, because I don't feel like I got it at home, or I didn't feel like I had the protection as a kid, and I didn't feel like I was loved there. And so when I got locked up the first time, it wasn't that bad to eat, play some sports, you work in the kitchen, do whatever, and then I get out, and I'm not even out that long, and I'm right back in the mix. I'm right back getting loaded. I'm right back, doing all the stuff I was doing, and I had this great idea. I was, seeing this girl, and her dad sold pounds of weed.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I was just before my 16th birthday. And she had, like, broke up with me, and she used to give me weed. I'd be like, hey, I got a friend coming over, he needs a dime of weed. She'd give me like an ounce, and I'd be like, all right, break this dime off. And, so one day, and her dad would get home anywhere from 3:15 to like 3:45, and I just found out he got a bunch of pounds of weed. So I walk in there and drive up in my friend's car, and my other friend hands me his pistol, and I knock on the door, and she lets me in, and she's like, I got to change, and I pop her dad's door, and I pull out a 5-pack of, 5 pounds, and put that in my dickies that were oversized, and she's like, no, don't do this, and
don't do it.
And I just walked out, and I remember dropping, it's like, 3:30 in the afternoon, and kids are playing outside, and this dude lived like 2 blocks away from me, and dropped it, and people seeing me drop this weed and this big old bag of weed, and jump in the car and take off, and and it's off and running, like I'm doing dope, and I'm selling this weed to live, and I'm staying at a friend's house, and my brother, he's doing kind of the same stuff, but he doesn't really, he'll smoke weed and drink, but he doesn't really get high like I do. And that dude comes to the house when he finally gets it out of his daughter who took it.
Yeah,
and,
he's not happy about that.
And he was like, told my mom, and he told my mom, he goes, where's your son at? I'm not going to kill him, but I'm going to beat him so he never does this to anybody again. And then my brother pulls out a shotgun and tells him, get off our porch.
There.
Get off my porch, and and you've talked about this before, like a good, criminal, what do we do when we run out of, what are we going to do? And I call mom, and mom had had enough, and mom gives me this number for this runaway shelter in LA called Angel's Flight. And and so I call this place because I'm out of options and I'm out of money and I'm out of dope and so I go to this homeless shelter in LA. It's like right in 18th Street neighborhood, like on Alvarado, like they're gangbanging right outside of the shelter. And people are getting shot and stuff. And
You're home again.
yeah, I mean it's the same shit, but it's
I
like
action.
a little higher scale.
Yeah, maybe not
It,
that guy.
it's a little higher scale, but not much. And I was there, and they told me, because I was on probation violation already, and because I had reported to my PO once, she told me she was going to lock me up, and I said I got to go. Like like I left and never went back.
You reported once. I mean,
Yeah, I reported once in like
Here I am.
in less than 6 months, and I'm telling and so they were like, you have to call your PO and you have to tell your PO and she's like, there's a court date for violation, and she goes, you're going to California Youth Authority, and I'm like, I'm going to juvenile prison, and it's bad for white boys in juvenile prison. Like they're getting raped, they're outnumbered, like it's all the horror stories that I hear, and you could be, and the thing about California is you could be in the juvenile system on a juvenile crime up until you're 25 years old.
Oh, damn.
So
you got some older cats.
So there's adults in there, like, I go to camp and there's a dude in there that's, I'm in receiving, and there's a dude that's like 20 years old doing a juvenile sentence. So they don't send him over there, they send him to juvenile, and
Grown ass.
and so I tell the counselor like, hey, I'm going to juvenile prison, like I need to leave here. And they were like, we'll help you, like we know you have a drug problem, and I didn't really want help, but I didn't want to go to a juvenile prison.
Yeah.
And so they took me down to Venice Beach, this place called Phoenix House. It's a big rehab. They have a few of them in New York and in LA and in Orange County.
Oh.
And
You don't say.
Yeah.
and so I interviewed for this place, and they were like, the quickest way you could get in here is to get court ordered. And they did a little paper, and so I go in front of the judge, and my PO's recommendation is YA, and then they look at this, and they they look at the paper, and the judge goes, I'm gonna give you a chance to go to rehab.
Wow,
And you think it would get it, right? Like the judge gave me a chance to go to rehab, and
chances.
and I still found out ways to get loaded.
Sure.
I graduated high school from there. I started going to college. I found out that I really liked to cook at that time. From being in there, dude, the cook there was a chef, and he would just talk about like all this stuff, and I was like, this is a great thing, right? And so I graduate high school. My PO wasn't letting me out yet. I'm turning 18. I do a summer of college in culinary school, and she was like, you need $2,000 in the bank. You need to have an apartment, a full-time job, and going to school full-time before I'll let you out of here. And I was like, that's a lot to do.
That's a tall order.
So, I went and signed up for the Navy.
Yeah.
I was like, here's how I'm going to get out.
Navy SEAL?
No, I just want to, actually, I was
got to know.
was told that they have a culinary school in Bermuda. The Navy does. So that's what I wanted to do. Like I had a dream for once in my life. Like I graduated high school. I didn't think I was going to make it till I was 18 years old. I'm 18 years old. I'm not dead. I'm kind of sober, but not, not.
California sober.
It's not even California sober. It's like I couldn't get to it, so I wasn't loaded. Yeah.
Access.
And then I'd been gone for a while, and all kinds of stuff had happened in the neighborhood, and all this stuff. So it's a coming home party. Scout's out, getting out. Mom's. Oh, that's the week I'm going on vacation to Mammoth with my boyfriend. So we have this big keg party.
Yeah, need that.
We had this big keg party, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna drink beer. I'm just gonna eat a little bit of acid because that doesn't come up on a drug test. And then this girl was like, hey, check out this weed I got from Redding, and then we started smoking weed. Next day we're in Venice Beach, walking around. I mean, flavored hemp seeds. I was like, it's
Yeah,
all
I'm already
bad.
dirty. I'm gonna light that whole cup up.
No, and then my friends were like, "Oh, just take golden seal. You'll piss clean if you take that stuff."
Dude, those never work.
Never.
Never.
I spent so
Damn.
much money on those over the years.
And
Yeah,
every
yeah.
time I read it, I'm like, damn, I must have done it wrong. And I'm like, I'll do it right next
They
time.
convince me every
I
time.
know. I'll get the more expensive one. That probably works better. Oh, I did it wrong. Oh, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I scored pretty good on my ASVAB. I'm not a stupid guy. And the thing I found out about Alcoholics Anonymous is there's not, like we're pretty smart when it comes to things. We just haven't been, pushed to the level to be at that ability unless it was like our criminal thinking. You know what I'm saying? Because the game of cops and robbers is legit. Like, we have to stay smarter than the cops so they don't learn what the next hustle is. And we bring out stuff and we start doing stuff, and then when they start catching on to this, then we start doing something else, right? And we're trying to stay one step ahead of them. And the thing about I go to the Navy and I piss dirty, and I remember calling my mom because I gotta go back home. You know what I'm saying? And I gotta go back home, and she's like, why'd you get kicked out of the Navy? And I was like, I got flat feet. Inconstitutional.
You're never gonna believe what happened.
You're inconstitutionally incapable of being honest even when faced with, like, am I going to have a place to live or not? And I spent 5 days on the Greyhound bus going from Great Lakes, Illinois back to LA. And I get home and my mom, they took my bed out of the room. I have a cot in there and a weight set. And they were like, you're sleeping on this army cot right here because we don't know what you're going to do. And I tried to go back to college. The Department of Rehabilitation hooked me up with, like, they were going to pay for my school, right? And all I had to do was a couple meetings a week.
That's it.
You just had to show up.
Yeah, and I got to go to school, right? And I'm doing good at school, like the whole deal is like it's cooking school and I'm cooking and I love this and, learning how to do this different stuff, but my disease gets in the way of me progressing in anything in my life.
Every time.
And
So much potential.
So
Oh,
yeah.
Actually,
I really never heard that. I was just trying to show people like I'm not a product of my environment. But
I'll prove you wrong.
but I can't stop drinking and smoking weed, and I can't stop selling weed, and I'm not gonna do speed because that's bad. And we were drunk and stole some alcohol from the Albertsons, and I get into a little police chase on foot, get the shit kicked out of me.
Foot chase.
And you can't outrun a car.
We'll try. We sure will try.
They were chasing me through that dirt lot, and because I made them run, and they kicked me. I'm spitting out dirt, and all the while, dude, and it's like the Albertsons by my house, and my mom had decided to stop at the Taco Bell right there, and I see her pulling into the drive-thru, so I'm like,
That's Scott.
yeah, no, I'm leaning way down in the back seat of the cop car. Yeah. So we go to LA County Jail, and it's a nightmare, dude, and it's a nightmare because white boys are sleeping in shifts there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's you went with your own shoes on, and they say shoe store as soon as you walk in. You're gonna be in a fight right away. Like it's just we're outnumbered. And luckily, I knew a few people from the streets, and hey, I was good there, and I go see my attorney, because they do like your arraignment, your plea bargain, and your sentencing. It's called speed docket in California.
Oh, fast track.
All in one day,
Easy,
right?
fast track.
Let's go.
No, and they were like, hey, my attorney's like, hey, if you sign this joint suspension, you'll get out today.
Where do I sign?
Yeah, I'm signing this, and I got probation, I got community service, I got all this stuff. I'm supposed to stay clean, and I can't do it.
So I got to go.
Yeah.
And so you take off.
Yeah, I got a friend in Arizona, and he was like, hey, come out here, there's jobs, dude, it's like the Wild Wild West out here.
Oh, yeah, you'll love it.
I got pulled over, going to drop dope off to my dad, because I had come across my dad had some problems with some gang members. I got jumped by him and his friend. My brother broke one of their noses. And then my mom was like, hey, you know who will fix this problem? And my dad hasn't been in my life my whole life. Like, I don't know him. Like, I haven't seen him probably since I was 5. And so I called my grandpa, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to my dad. And so my dad, my grandpa calls me and puts me on the phone with my dad, and my dad was like, I'll be out there tomorrow. I'll be on the bus. And he's... he's this dude, he's a collection guy that's, and this is part of it too. Like I would go buy dope from my friends' parents, and they would be like, "Oh, have you seen your dad? Like he, you know, and he does dope with them, and he's just known for breaking arms and stuff, and so he comes out and we meet him, and I'm selling dope at this spot, and he hangs out, and I'm, you know, we're boiling roots of this weed plants we stole, and you know, to make tea.
Yeah, tea.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, you want to smoke a joint? And he was like, no, but do you got some speed? And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to impress my dad, so I put this big line out there, dude, and he just snorts it, dude, not even a teardrop in his eye, and he was like, you got another one? And I was like, oh, this is going to cost me a lot of money.
It's getting really expensive.
Yeah, so...
Is that out here in AZ?
No, this is in Arizona. This is before I went back. Yeah, so what really messed up my probation was I had borrowed this tweaker's car. I was going to drop off some dope at his house to him because someone wanted to buy some, and we stopped and got a bunch of beer. I had my brother, and he's underage, and his two friends are underage, and we get pulled over by the cops. I hit one corner, I hit the next corner. I'm trying to tuck the dope down in the seat.
They're never gonna find it.
No, I mean, this is Tweaker's car, and there's all this trash on the floor. I'm like, this ain't mine, right? But I mean, I'm 18 years old with, you know, 540s of Old English sitting in the passenger seat right there, and you know, I got weed in my pocket, and so I'm tucking this down, and I look up, and I'm headed for this house. I went up on the curb and on the lawn, and so I hit the brakes, and you know, my dad wasn't a real nice guy, but you know, he wouldn't do anything to me because he wasn't around. He just wanted a relationship with me, even if he was getting loaded and drinking all the time. And I remember them saying that they seen my friend in the backseat throw the the speed, and we're sitting in the back of the cop car, and I was like, dude, I'm on probation. Just take this. You're a juvenile. Yeah, you're a juvenile. I'm gonna go to prison, right? Yeah, they're not gonna do nothing. Give you 6 months of probation.
Slap on the wrist.
And he was like, okay. So my dad comes walking down, right, and he starts talking to the cop, and the cop looks at him, and he goes, "Wasn't I out here last night because you were trying to fight 4 black dudes?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You better go before I take your son to jail."
Yeah.
Yeah, he gives me this 2-page ticket, driving with no license, you know, driving on the sidewalk, doing, you know, having alcohol underage, all this stuff. And he takes my friend's son to jail. His dad's calling me. I was like, dude, it was just in the car. You know, I can't even be honest with this guy. And I smoke weed with this dude, with his dad. And so the next day I give him some weed. So anyways, I'm on the run. My mom finds these tickets. She knows that I haven't gone to probation. I haven't done my Caltrans or community service. And she was like, you're going to go to prison. So I called my friend Bobby. You know, he called me, wanted me to come out. And so my mom was like, I'll put you on a plane. And this is before 9/11, so I get an ounce of chronic, you know. And
I'm going to need that.
Put it in my shoe, and I jump on a plane to Arizona.